Well, we are getting into demonology. We're turning the corner. We've been in angelology. And this study, you know, you guys are coming, you're enjoying it, and I'm grateful. It's hard for me to get excited about this because it's so, it's all intuitive, and it's so much of it is just extrapolating, right? And that's, but I'm glad it's helpful to you. You guys, several of you made comments and you've enjoyed it, and it's not something that you typically study, and so I'm happy for that as well.
It's because in the culture, angels and demons, that there's so, especially around angels, there's so much garbage.
There's a lot of garbage.
You know, that it's easy to get drawn into it.
Yes, and that's a good point.
And so it's good to have a grounding.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's a good point. So as we're doing with angelology, we'll be doing demonology. And again, this is very deductive, very deductive. The only real, the next second deductive nature theological system I can think of is the place of the dead. You know, I did some work on that some years ago. If y'all read The Spirit World, that's pretty deductive. Most theology is very plain. You're told, and you put all that together in a big chart and you come up with an ironclad theological system. This is not like that. It's a little more finicky than that, but we can make deductions, and that's what we're doing. And you're going to notice a lot of this is going to sound exactly like angelology. That's because demons are angels. So we learned angelology. A lot of the same points we're going to go through for demonology, and you're going to see the same realities. Only these are disobedient angels that are God's enemies. And so we start the same way we started with angelology, with common misconceptions. Same misconceptions. One is that demons don't exist. A lot of people like to say demons they don't really exist. Of course, there are people, a lot of those same people say that, you know, God doesn't really exist. And you know, so whatever. They do exist, and we're going to get to that. We'll explain that as we go. Some say they exist, but they're not active personalities. We're going to refute that tonight as well. They are rather representative emanations or representative thoughts of evil. They don't have a will. They're not real creatures. They're not actual beings. They are just representative prototypes. They're like literary agents to help us understand the world. That's a misconception. Another misconception that's more common than you think, and this is unlike angelology, that demons are personally responsible for every sin. If you have friends, close friends, that particularly, I'm not picking on charismatics. I speak very frankly about different groups, and charismatics tend to that vein. I remember when I was at Houston Baptist University. Strange thing about Houston Baptist University, I think there were more Lakewood people there than all the Baptist churches in Houston combined. All of my friends went to Lakewood, and it was a big Lakewood place. That was back when John Osteen was pastor of Lakewood. I sat and listened to him several times and decided he wasn't my guy. And then when Joel took over, I really decided that wasn't my place anymore. But charismatic people, and again, I grew up in a Baptist-costal home. My Baptist father married a Pentecostal stepmother who I love dearly, wonderful woman. She's still alive, still plugging along, had muscular dystrophy for pushing 80 years now and still going. But she went to a Pentecostal church, and so I've experienced a lot of Pentecostalism. My neighbors, when I was growing up, even younger than that, were Pentecostals, and I would go to their church. They would come to my church. So I'm very well versed in Pentecostalism. And it is there that I hear this misconception a lot. There's a demon of drunkenness. There's a demon of sexual immorality. Now, by the way, those things probably are true, but the misconception is that every time I fail, a demon, you know, the old saying was, the devil made me do it, right? That's basically the joke version of a serious theology some people believe, that demons are behind everything. They're not. They are behind some things, but don't ever underestimate the good old-fashioned sin nature of your common man, because it is powerful. Another misconception is that demons are responsible for every physical illness. This, again, is a big charismatic, a big Pentecostal thought process. If you're sick, you hear them. If you ever listen to telechurch, Pentecostal telechurch, we rebuke the demon of cancer. We rebuke the demon of COVID. I think COVID demons got rebuked so many times, a few years ago. There's not a demon for every illness. Where did illness come from? More specifically, from whom did illness come? You don't want to say it. God. God said the day you eat of it, you will die. Illness is versioning basically of death. This was God's judgment. It's just not, now demons love death, and the last enemy is death, because yes, death is connected to sin, it's connected to the body of sin, and death is the enemy, and that's what the gospel was here to remedy. But the idea that demons are responsible for every physical illness is simply not even remotely true. It's not even reasonably true. However, in Scripture, you do see sometimes that demons cause people to have illness. So it's possible. But they're not responsible for every physical illness. And then demons are responsible for every mental disability. Same thing. Again, all three of those last ones, very, very high-functioning misconceptions, especially among charismatics. And again, I'm not trying to lump them all together. Not all charismatics are equally susceptible to those misconceptions, but you see them a lot in Pentecostalism. Our Greek term for demon is daimonia. Daimonia, daimonion, a whole bunch of different versions of that. That term is used 60 times in the New Testament, 19 times in the singular, 41 in the plural. We will get to the rest of their names and terms for them like we did with angels shortly. So let's first deal with the misconception of demons aren't real. Well, every New Testament writer, except the author of Hebrews, and I'm going to accept him not knowing who he is. Some people think Paul wrote Hebrews. If Paul wrote Hebrews, then every New Testament writer deals with demons. But whoever wrote Hebrews, assuming he's not one of the authors of another New Testament book, he didn't deal with demons. Every other New Testament author did. We see him in Matthew 4:24. News about him spread all over Syria. People brought to him those who were ill with various diseases, those suffering severe pain, the demon-possessed, and those having seizures. Matthew 8:16, many who were demon-possessed were brought to Jesus. Mark 1, people brought Jesus the sick and the demon-possessed. Mark 3, Jesus appointed 12, designating them apostles that they could be with him and send them out to preach and have authority to drive out demons. Luke, I'm not going to do the whole New Testament. Luke 4:33, a man possessed by a demon. Luke 8, some women who've been cured of evil spirits. 7 demons were in Mary Magdalene. John, in Revelation, we see lots of demons in Revelation. War between Michael and the demons. In John 8, they called Jesus demon-possessed, and Jesus said, I am not demon-possessed. Paul, 1 Corinthians 10, talking about the sacrifices of pagans offered to demons. We're going to come back around to that because that's an important one there. 1 Timothy 4, in latter times some will abandon the faith and follow deceiving spirits and things taught by demons. That's a big, big verse too, because that, when we talked about apostasy at the beginning of our solas, and we talk about apostasy in connection with end time, there's an end time apostasy in 2 Thessalonians. Both Jesus' work in the kingdom parables, where he talked about the birds perching in the branches, there's a very demonic corruption associated with the end time apostasy that we are to be watching for. And right there, Paul says it very directly. People will abandon the faith, that's apostasy, and they'll follow deceiving spirits and things taught by demons. James 2, you believe there's one God, good, even the demons believe that and shudder. 2 Peter, God did not spare angels when they sinned. Jude and 2 Peter, pretty much the same subject matter. The angels who did not keep their positions of authority, but abandoned their home, these he kept in darkness. So we see Jesus taught, believing and teaching about demons. He taught they exist in Matthew 22. Did we not prophesy in your name and drive out demons in your name? So would Jesus talk about demons directly? Would he talk about demons as though they are real if they weren't really real? Matthew 10, go to the lost sheep of Israel, preach this message, the kingdom of heaven is near, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy. Are all those things real? Are there sick people? Are there dead people? Are there people with leprosy? Drive out demons. Why would Jesus say drive out demons if demons weren't to be driven out and they weren't real? Matthew 12. Jesus said, if I drive out demons by Beelzebub, you remember the context of that. That was the miracle where they called him demon-possessed. He said he has a demon. It's by the prince of demons this man drives out demons because he's not the Messiah. Well, they knew he was the Messiah because he did a messianic miracle. He drove out a demon of a mute man, and the Jews had taught that wasn't possible unless Messiah came. So Jesus used their convention, showed himself to be Messiah. The people recognized it, said, surely this is the son of David, but the teacher says, no, he's demon-possessed himself. So Jesus said, if I drive out demons by the Spirit of God, if I drive out demons by Beelzebub, by whom do your people drive them out? So he's acknowledging he drove out a demon, and he's acknowledging that the Jews drove out demons. Demons were real, or Jesus is crazy. You really kind of have to pick there. We see Jesus driving out demons. It gets worse. Jesus is really tilting at windmills if demons aren't real, because he doesn't just talk about them like they're real. The Matthew 12 demon we were talking about, they brought him a demon-possessed man who was blind and mute, and Jesus healed him so he could both talk and see. Mark 1, he traveled throughout Galilee preaching in synagogues, driving out demons. Jesus drove out demons himself. Luke 4, in the synagogue, there's a man possessed by a demon. Cried out, what do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? We know who you are, the Holy One of God. Be quiet, Jesus said, and come out of him. So Jesus, we now have narration, looked at a man that Luke, our author, tells us was demon-possessed. Jesus told the demon to come out of the man. So Jesus is truly Don Quixote if demons are real. The demon threw the man down before them all and came out without injuring him. So Jesus, in his teaching, in his actions, in his interactions, very clearly discussed demons. They're real. They were real. Now, one of the questions that I don't deal with in the text or deal with in the study that I think is an interesting question, and I don't have an answer, but it's an interesting question, so I'll just let you all be bothered by it like I am. Why do we see so much demonic activity in the New Testament, particularly in Jesus' life and times? I have some suggestions, but I don't have a clear biblical answer. Yeah, that's all we got. What do you think? I think that's the best suggestion, yeah. Say again?
To keep the gospel from being shared and Christianity spreading.
Okay. And, you know, if the idea that Messiah is coming, now he's on the earth, he's here. And there's a scary corollary thought. So I like David's thought. The demonic kingdom know Jesus is coming. Let's go, boys. You know, we need to step up our game. Jesus is here. We need to distract. We need to keep, you know, we need to take everything down that we can and just try to really fight against the presence of the Son of God on the planet. The corollary scary thought is, what if we only knew those demons were here because Jesus was here, but they were here anyway, and doing all the same things anyway, conducting all the same business anyway, only because Jesus was walking around. This demon's like, who are you? What do you want with us? He calls Jesus out, not the other way around. But there are other people that knew they had demon-possessed people. So I'd lean towards the demonic activity just being stronger, maybe during that time. But since we went there, what do you think about our times?
So in Romans, he makes it clear that the law did not produce sin, and it was not cured of sin, but it pointed out the sin. And so really, Jesus being there was kind of the same thing. He pointed out, they saw these demon-possessed people, and they didn't know anything about them, but then he was able to drive them out, and they could see the difference.
Drawing poison from a wound.
Yeah. And so I think that's part of it right there, is that because he was there, he was able to
And the beauty of Jesus doing that is Jesus is Jesus. He's God in the flesh. And we are always going to wrangle with Philippians 2. He emptied himself and became nothing, taking on the nature of a servant. That kenotic theory, again, that tends to be, kenotic theory is false. Kenoticism, kenao is the word, emptied, and kenoticism teaches that Jesus devalued himself of being the Son of God while he was here. That he was here just as a man. He wasn't God in the flesh. He was just a man. And all the things he did in the flesh were the Holy Spirit acting through him, not his own deity. Now that is not what the Scripture teaches. He is God, eternally God, always man. He's an enigma. But it does say he emptied himself. There was an aspect of his splendor as the Son of God that he set aside. He was born in a barn, you know. In our day, it'd be like being born in the auto parts section of Walmart. You know, I mean, it's like, where else could you be born that would be less fitting, right? Actually, Walmart's probably got everything you need. But born in a barn, he lived his life in innocence, and grew in wisdom and stature in Luke. And so the idea of him emptying himself wasn't that he divested himself of his deity. But at some point, he recognized who he was, and we see his deity shining through. He's doing all these miracles, but there are times that he knows something, and there are times that it seems that he doesn't. The rapture, what do you say about that? No one knows but the Father. Well, I think that was the human Jesus speaking. You think Jesus doesn't know today? I suspect he does today. But I think in his humanity, that's not something that he needed to know. That was part of the... if you're going to call it, that was the part he set aside. That wasn't, but his deity was still there. And so interacting with demonic entities as the Son of God, I would think that just being in nature God, you would sense that evil pretty easily in ways that you and I don't, maybe. Plus, he's the Son of God. He's omnipotent, omnipotent and omniscient. I don't know how much he used that when it wasn't in God's plan for him to use that. That's an enigma that we're going to wrestle with all of our life. But I think that there's an argument to be made that those demons are always there, and Jesus being in their present either brought them out or he saw them in ways that you and I don't. And that's kind of a creepy thought. So, now that I've gone there, how many of you think you've seen someone who's demon-possessed? Go ahead, throw them up. My hand's up. I think I have. It's okay if you haven't, but I certainly think I have. And not only have I, but some of you, and don't look around at somebody who's not here tonight, is one I'm thinking of right now, had come to me and spent serious time with me about this, about someone in the family that really, this person thought was demon-possessed. What do I do about that? And let me tell you, that's a struggle. That's a hard one. So one of the things that we need to be mindful of, these things are real, and they were all over the place when Jesus walked the earth. Are they all over the place still? Or were they more active then? Were they the same active now, but we just don't recognize them the way Jesus did? And while not all evil, illness, and whatnot is demonic activity, maybe some of it is. In Scripture, some of it was. Maybe we are missing some of it and calling it illness. So those are things to think about, and I don't have clear answers for that. The Bible doesn't tell me, put 3 drops of holy water on his arm, and if it burns, he's got a demon. I don't have anything like that. I do have some spirit testing things we'll get to toward the end from 1 John. So, but Jesus clearly interacted with demons. He knew demons. He spoke with demons. He cast out demons. If Jesus believed in demons, there are demons. End of story. So quickly, let's get to their names. And we did this with angels. There are a lot of things we'll see in Scripture that we may or may not connect with demons. And some of these are the same as the words we'll see for angels. And angels is one of them. So angels of evil, that's helpful. We know that they're angels, but if they're angels of evil, it's a demon. It's not. And by the way, let me just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off and tell you, we're going to be making the argument biblically but it's easier to tell you the answer first, and then we'll get to the argument when we get to the argument. Demons are angels, right? I know I've already said that. You already knew that, but let me just, as we work through this, demons are angels. I know some people who, from a theological perspective, debate that. They think that angels are angels and demons are something else. They're not. They're the same creature. They are just fallen angels. So here we have in Psalm 78, he unleashed against them his hot anger, his wrath, indignation, and hostility, a band of destroying angels. Literally, that is evil angels or evil messengers. Now, in this case, it's interesting. It seems that God unleashed demons. And by the way, that sounds like, well, why would a demon do what God says? Well, don't read Revelation literally then, because there's a lot of that in Revelation. There's a lot of the unleashing of the demonic entities in Revelation to go out and do God's bidding. And you know when they get done and they come back, it's like, boy, we wrecked that place. And one of them's like, I think God made us do that. Did we seriously just do what God wanted us to do? Yeah, he's like that. That's what I think, though. So, sons of God, Ben Elohim, we talked about that. Sons of God could be used for good angels. It could also refer to evil angels. I do believe in Genesis 6, that's what we see, the Ben Elohim there. They are disobeying God. I believe that's what 2 Peter and Jude are referring to. We see in Hebrew the word Sheddim, and that, or Sheddim, actually, I think is the way you say that properly. That is to rule or to be Lord. It's not, and I say it that because it's not a plural. It's just when you see the I am, I instinctively put the im on there, but this is not a plurality. It means to rule or to be Lord, and that's a word that's used of demons at times. Deuteronomy 32, they sacrificed to Sheddim, to demons, which are not God. Gods they not known, gods that recently appeared, gods your fathers did not fear. Every major translation translates Sheddim as demons in this context. Psalm 106, they sacrificed their sons and daughters to demons, Sheddim. We see Serim, or Serim, and that is a plural. That is the plural of the goat demon. And we see that actually a lot in the Old Testament. And this is getting a little personal, a little weird, a little uncomfortable. But that word, it's seir for a singular, it's serim for the plural, and it's connected to, and a lot of times in mythology, you hear the word satyr. It is a goat demon. It is a demon that has a goat-like appearance. And now the question is, who has seen these things that they should name them that? And the answer has to be somebody, because that's really and truly the name. It's a goat demon. And what does that mean? It means a demon that has goat-like features when it is glorified. Remember I told you angels can appear as men, and then they appear glorified. When they're glorified, they look like angels. We look at John in Revelation, we look at Ezekiel, they see glorified angels and they describe them. And the seraphim with their 6 wings and a calf face and a lion face and a man face and there was another one, eagle face. 4 faces. How does that work? I don't know. I don't want to know. In fact, I appreciate artists who have gone to great lengths to try to draw that, and I wish they hadn't, because I don't want to see that. I don't like the thought of that. And these are the good guys. Now, you think about a demon who was a good angel that was already that frightening, and now he's literally God's enemy. Now he literally would like to see you destroyed, and but for the grace of God. You would be if you were to encounter him. And these are demons that look like goats. They have goat features. We'll get to those later. We see animal-like features in a lot of demons. But again, we also see those in righteous angels, so that's not always just demon stuff. But the Serim is the goat demon. Leviticus 17, they must no longer offer sacrifices to the goat idols. And you see that a lot in your English translation. You'll see goat idols or goat demons. 2 Chronicles 11, he appointed his own priest for the high place and for the Serim, the goat and calf idols he had made. Isaiah 13, desert creatures, we're going to deal in this verse in detail later. Desert creatures will lie there, jackals fill her houses, the owls will dwell, the wild goats will leap about. That is the Seir, or the Serim. So the The Seir or the Seder is how it's developed in some later mythological language, or the Serim for the plural. Another specific demon is the Lilith. The Lilith is literally translated as a night monster or a night demon. It is a demon that got that name, presumably from people who've interacted with those demons, knowing that it's a night kind of demon. It does its work at night, which, why wouldn't he? You know, darkness is a night thing. Isaiah 34, desert creatures meet with hyenas and wild serim, the wild goats, the goat demons, the seir, to bleat to each other. They're the night creatures. The Lilith will also repose and find for themselves no place of rest. Again, we'll deal with that text later. This text shows goat demons and night demons dwelling together. That's in Edom, the same wilderness that the remnant is going to be sent. We'll talk about all that later. I'm not going to get into that right now. Evil spirit. Evil spirit is just what it sounds like. We see spirits and we see angels called spirits. Demons are called spirits. They're just evil spirits. They are spirits that are evil. 1 Samuel 16. The Spirit of the Lord departed Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord tormented him. This is an evil spirit. So did the Lord send a demon to Saul? If you use natural linguistic hermeneutics, yes. You can make an argument that God sent a righteous angel that did his bidding and tormented Saul, and it was evil from Saul's perspective. But if you use natural linguistics, it says an evil spirit was sent from the Lord. So why would an evil spirit torment the king if God sent him? Again, God is God. Even the demons do not resist his will. And I think that if God sent a demon to the king of Israel, he would get all giddy at the opportunity to go do that. And God uses them. So I lean toward that being an actual demonic spirit. And again, they don't fellowship with God. They don't willfully do God's bidding. But God, they will do what God sends them to do anyway. 1 Samuel 18, the next day an evil spirit from God came forcefully upon Saul. Same idea. Familiar spirit. Now these are spirits that, familiar is the operative word. These are spirits that people become familiar with. These are spirits that people build relationships with. As creepy as that sounds, this is a big deal in spiritism. And by the way, this is going to come out sooner or later. Let me just bring it up now. There are in the church a lot of preachers, theologians who would say, that stuff doesn't happen. That's hocus pocus. That's child's play. That's Stephen King novels. That's not what the Bible teaches us. The Bible teaches us these beings are real, and the concept of a familiar spirit is real. The Bible teaches us that, yes, human beings through demonic powers can do supernatural things that you and I can't do without demonic powers. Now, does that bother me? Yes. I don't like that one bit. But that's what the Bible teaches. And it teaches it consistently. And one of these very common ones is the familiar spirit. So these are the spirits that have been harvested. Relationships have been harvested by human beings. Mediums, spiritists, witches. These are the demons who are the heart and soul, I put in your notes, of most satanic practices. And by satanic practices, I don't mean Satanism as a modern term. The idea of Satanism in the modern era is not what you probably would think it is. I think Aleister Crowley wrote the Book of Satan, and he had a satanic church. And their whole theology was basically, it was actually the root of Satanism for sure. But it wasn't worship the devil. It was worship self. It was, I will be God. That's the heart of modern Satanism as far as those who are proponents of that. It is the ultimate self-servitude, which is what Satan's original fall was. I'm going to be like the Most High. I'm not listening to him. I'm going to do God. But Satanism in the sense of a more biblical vein. The people who do demonic, satanic things and use demonic, satanic powers in Scripture, and we do see them. We see them often enough. And we'll get to some of those before we're done. Deuteronomy 18, and the whole point of all that was, yes, these things happen. These things are real. It is possible that Cleo, when you call her, could really be getting information. Yeah, y'all remember Cleo? I got one laugh out of that. Hi, I'm Cleo. Call me. Like 1-900, worship the devil. The evening. My grandparents in West Columbia, between Old Ocean and West Columbia, lived out there for years. Next door to them was a lady named the Reverend Mother Lucy. Have you ever heard of the Reverend Mother Lucy? You know the Reverend Mother Lucy. And I never met this woman. My parents didn't want me over there. My grandparents interacted with them. They were neighbors. But she had people coming in and out of her house all the time. And she was supposedly a medium, a spiritist, and whatever she did. Now listen, I believe with all of my heart, most of those people are just straight up quacks. They're just nuts. But the powers they claim to represent, I do believe are real. And I do believe that Satan can do those things. I do believe that he can empower a Ouija board. I believe he can empower, and he craves to be worshiped. And it's why we should go to great lengths to insulate, inoculate, protect our little ones from that kind of stuff. Okay? One of the big fights my wife and I had when my boys were young was over Harry Potter books and whether or not they were going to read that. And this is a couple of us have talked recently about the disputable matters there in Romans 14. Okay, this is one of those. So you don't have to go the way I did, but we had this whole debate about that. Right? Are they going to read that or not? So listen, I think we need to know these things are real. Every time people claim that they're not there. But they might be, they could be, and often they are. Deuteronomy 18, let no one be found among you who sacrifices his son and daughter to the fire. That's just offering a sacrifice to a pagan idol, which has a demon behind it often. Sometimes not, sometimes so. We'll get to that later too. One who practices divination or sorcery. Those are ones that are actually practicing, interacting with demonic powers. Interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells. Who is a medium or a spiritist, and that is the one asking, the way that translates, one who speaks to a familiar spirit or consults the dead. So yes, these are things that the Israelites were warned not to do. You don't warn people not to do things that aren't real. You don't warn people not to do things that can't be done. Isaiah 8, men tell you to consult mediums and spiritists. That's those asking of familiar spirits who whisper and mutter. Should not people rather inquire of their God? Isaiah 19, the Egyptians will lose heart. I'll bring their plans to nothing. They'll consult their idols and the spirits of the dead, the mediums and spiritists, the familiar spirits. So familiar spirit, that is a demon that interacts with humanity to make hocus pocus happen. And yes, that can happen. That's real. I'm not saying every time you see it, it's real. I'm saying it can be real. It is a real thing. Hebrew, the word Gad, which means fortune. Now, in this case, this one text we have here, Isaiah, Gad is capitalized as a proper name, and this personification of Gad makes it unique, but it is a deification, if you will, or certainly a proper naming of a fortune spirit, a spirit of fortune. Isaiah 65, you who forsake the Lord, forget my holy mountain, who spread a table for fortune, or Gad, and fill bowls of mixed wine for destiny. We'll get to that one next.